Hello everyone, my name is Daniel. I'm a data scientist and this is my very first YouTube video, by the way. And I guess controversially, I want to talk to you about how to start a new YouTube channel. And I want to talk about the 5 most important things that you want to consider before or while starting a new YouTube channel. So first of all is my reasons for starting a YouTube channel. What is the hardest problem to overcome? Preparation work that goes into this process. What are the next steps? And some final thoughts. So let's get started. So my main reason for starting a YouTube channel is basically because this is very interesting. This is something I've never done before. The most important thing is that I'm going to learn lots of new skills which go hand in hand with content creation. Potentially you can meet new people and you get a lot of different ideas when doing something new. So the hardest problem to overcome is how to get started. I had this thought for quite a while, maybe for half a year, and I've been thinking about this every now and then, but never actually got to the point of doing anything. Lots of different things stopped me from recording my first video. The biggest one of all was what I'm going to talk about. Well, as I mentioned, I'm a data scientist. Am I going to do a blog about engineering or building machine learning projects? I like everything about cars. So am I going to become one of the car review guys? I don't know. I love everything about tech. So is this going to be a tech review channel? I have no idea. Thinking about all these things, and it took months. So throughout my research, I've discovered that maybe one of the most interesting things on YouTube right now is how to start a YouTube channel. So basically I decided to start a YouTube channel with a video about how to start a YouTube channel. And from the one that has just started and all this thought process that went into it, I guess it could be valuable for the ones that are just getting ready to get started. Another problem is, what is the equipment that I'm going to use? By looking at the great examples on YouTube, you can see that they are using crazy expensive cameras and microphone systems. Sound is something crazy important, which everybody invests a lot of money into. Of course, they look and sound great, but this is not something that you want to overly invest into when you have not yet published any videos. Buy something very simple, plug it into your iPhone or maybe your camera. This is more than enough to get going. The lighting setup, enormously expensive studio, all those things kept me from getting started. Eventually, I came to a conclusion that, well, I will never start. So I made a very easy setup. So basically, I'm just using my iPhone, and the only thing I had to buy was this microphone, because 50% of the great video content experience is the sound. This is the only investment that I've made. So the money I've spent on this whole setup is maybe 30 bucks. I don't know what is going to work for me. For this whole lighting situation, I decided to use just natural light. This is a beautiful Sunday morning, 9:18 a.m. I'm exposed to this beautiful daylight, and I think this is more than perfect for a YouTube setup that you don't want to spend any money on. The next important thing is preparation, and this is one of the other reasons that keeps people from starting a YouTube channel. So I've watched like 100 different videos about what to do first, and they were all ranging from different things, from something crazy complicated to a very easy setup like this one right here. I remember this one guy advised to create a really big spreadsheet with like 25 different columns when you will first analyze the competition, study all the different topics there are on YouTube, find your niche, whatever that is going to be, and fill up all the different do's and don'ts. Then maybe hopefully by the end of 2 months, you will fill up a really big spreadsheet that you will then have to analyze once again and figure out what you're gonna have to do next. So without all these complications, there is still a barrier for people to just film a video on their iPhone, do some basic editing and upload it on YouTube. So I figured that, if I throw that into the picture and start this crazy research, I will never start a YouTube channel. Studio setup. I was lucky to have a great background with lots of natural sunlight. Well, in most other cases, you might have to become a bit more creative by making some pretty background for your video, and especially important to have enough light, because this is going to reflect on your video quality and the content quality in general. Trust me, more likely you're going to have much more problems when just recording your content. Well, because the first time you speak to the camera, this is going to be weird. You just have no idea how many takes it took me to record this short video. Fluent conversation with the camera is not something we usually do. So you're gonna experience some hard times doing that. Another important aspect is video editing software. You might want to try Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro. Those are the things you're gonna have to pay for. But for starters, you might want to use iMovie or some other free software that's available on the market. Definitely not overthink this whole thing before you create your first piece of content. You start with something plain and simple, see what works for you, and only then you should consider investing into some professional software or service. So you have created your first piece of content. What's next? It really depends on your goal. If you decided to build a community around you to become an influencer, create great content, you have to be consistent. You're gonna have to create a plan of a few video ideas in advance and stick to this plan, consistently providing content for your viewers. The only reason for people to subscribe to somebody's YouTube channel is because they like the content and they want to see more. That means they're expecting you to post something on a regular basis, and you should fulfill that expectation. So what is gonna be your niche? Thinking a lot about this, I realized that you cannot possibly know what is going to be your niche. You might think that you know the people that are going to subscribe to your videos, but you really don't. Once you build that community and you understand which of your videos make the most impact, that is the number of likes, the number of subscriptions and things like that, only then you will figure out what is going to be your niche. And for the more mature YouTube channels, they usually pivot from the original idea that they had when they started their YouTube channel. You can study this on your own. Just open some successful YouTube channel, open their list of videos, scroll down to the very bottom, and just analyze what did they start with. What was their video number 100? What was the video number 200? How did the topics change? And one of the reasons they got successful is they have studied the feedback from their community and understood which are the topics that are the most engaging to the people that subscribe to them. The main takeaway here is don't get carried away by the thoughts about your niche. Just start with something and build on top of that. Once I actually started precisely planning out what is going to be the topic of my first video, I started getting all these crazy ideas about what else I could talk about, which could be interesting to the audience. So I created a note on my phone, and everything that popped into my head throughout the day, I would just put on that note. And after just 2 or 3 days, the list counted 20+ topics for interesting YouTube videos. So this problem of what am I going to talk about is only going to exist up until the moment that you actually start doing something. So the next thing you want to focus on is building up the skill. As I mentioned, the hardest thing for me while creating this video is actually talking to the camera fluently, because I haven't had the experience of doing that before. So that is the first thing that you want to do, build up that skill. For the folks out there that have the experience of talking to the camera, maybe the next skill you want to develop is video editing, creating some beautiful thumbnails, researching your audience, researching topics that you want to create. And of course, depending on your profession, well, if you're not still a student, you want to stay consistent to what you do for a living. So if you're a student, this YouTube channel should not distract you from the most important thing in your period of life, that is education. And of course, for the working professionals, this should not interact with what you do for a living. Which brings me to my next important point, planning. This process, like everything else in life, from my point of view, should not be chaotic. So the first part of the plan would be fixing a time frame which is free from your educational work, which you can spend on creating content. What works for me is during weekdays, I would spend maybe half an hour in the evening every now and then for some education and planning and thought process. And since I'm filming with natural light, I'm gonna do this on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. Make a few separate lists. The first one is gonna break down your new video idea. What is gonna be the timeline? What are you gonna talk about? What is gonna be the most important points? Basically, it's gonna be a script for your next video. The next list is going to include all those video ideas that you come up with every now and then. You know, sometimes in the middle of the night, you're gonna have some brilliant idea. Just don't forget to write it down. So as the beginner to this process, don't create those artificial barriers and constraints around you by niching down into a specific topic. Give yourself the freedom to try different things. Start what's interesting for you, and then you'll figure it out. So I really have no idea, is this video gonna be good or bad, because this is basically the first content that I'm going to post. So if anyone feels that they want to engage in a conversation, just drop a comment below telling me how was it. Any piece of advice about something that could have been done better would be highly appreciated. Personally, I've decided to be consistent, and if you want to see how far this will go, subscribe and we can learn together. In the next week video, I'll show you my cheap YouTube video setup. I'll show off all the gear that I'm using to make these videos, and of course we'll go over the software and how to use it. So for those who stayed up until the end, thank you and see you next week.